It was a cold autumn evening in the small town of Black Hollow, Oregon. The wind whispered through the tall pine trees, and the forest surrounding the town looked darker than usual, almost alive. Everyone in Black Hollow knew one rule: never go too deep into Ravenwood Forest after sunset. But one man broke that rule. His name was Daniel Carter, a 34-year-old wildlife photographer. Daniel was known for chasing rare shots: dangerous cliffs, wild animals, and mysterious forests. He believed fear was just an illusion. 3 days ago, Daniel had entered Ravenwood Forest to capture photos of a rumored black wolf. He carried his camera, flashlight, and a backpack filled with supplies. Before leaving, his wife Emily had held his hand tightly. She whispered nervously. People say strange things happen in that forest. Daniel smiled gently and kissed her forehead. "Oh, worry, Em. I'll be back before sunrise." Those were the last normal words she heard from him. Day 1, the disappearance. Daniel drove his pickup truck to the edge of Ravenwood Forest at exactly 7:42 p.m. The sky was turning purple and the air felt unusually cold. As he stepped into the forest, the silence felt heavy. Too heavy. No birds, no insects, nothing. Only the sound of his boots crunching on dry leaves. After walking for nearly an hour, Daniel noticed something strange. The trees looked different. Their trunks were twisted, almost like human bodies frozen in pain. Some branches resembled hands reaching toward him. He shook his head. Still. Just imagination, he muttered. Then suddenly, snap, a loud twig broke behind him. Daniel turned quickly, raising his flashlight. Nothing. But the forest felt closer now, tighter. He kept walking. That's when he saw it. Deep between the trees, a tall figure stood motionless. It looked like a man. Daniel lifted his camera and zoomed in. The figure didn't move. Its head slowly tilted to one side. And then it vanished. Not walked away, not ran, just disappeared. Daniel's heart started racing. For the first time in years, fear crept into his chest. He decided to head back. But when he turned around, the path was gone. Day 2, the search back in town. Emily noticed Daniel hadn't returned. By morning, panic spread through Black Hollow. Police officers and volunteers organized a search team. Sheriff Mark Sullivan led the operation. They searched the forest all day. They found Daniel's truck. They found his backpack. But Daniel himself was nowhere. That night, the temperature dropped sharply and a thick fog covered the forest. Search teams reported hearing strange noises, whispers, footsteps, and distant crying. One volunteer swore he saw a shadow walking between the trees. The sheriff dismissed it as stress, but deep down he felt uneasy. Day 3, the return at exactly 3:17 a.m., something terrifying happened. A security camera outside the town gas station captured movement near the road. The footage showed a man walking slowly toward town. His clothes were torn. His body was covered in mud. It was Daniel. But something was horribly wrong. He walked stiffly like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings, and his face was empty. Where his eyes should have been, there were only dark hollow sockets. No blood, no wounds, just black emptiness. The gas station clerk screamed and called emergency services. Police rushed to the scene and surrounded Daniel. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, breathing slowly. Emily arrived minutes later. When she saw her husband, she collapsed in shock. Daniel, what happened to you?" she cried. He turned his head toward her voice, and then he smiled, slow, unnatural smile. The hospital doctors immediately admitted Daniel to St. Mary's Medical Center. They ran every possible test: x-rays, brain scans, blood analysis. Everything came back normal, except for one terrifying fact. His eyes were completely gone, not damaged, not injured, gone, as if they had never existed. Yet somehow, Daniel could still walk perfectly. He could avoid obstacles. He could even find his way to the bathroom alone. Doctors were baffled. It defied science. The first words for 2 days, Daniel remained silent. He sat on the hospital bed, motionless. Then on the 3rd night, something changed. At exactly 2:59 a.m., the nurse on duty heard a whisper. She walked into Daniel's room. He was sitting upright, facing the window. Daniel?" she asked softly. His head slowly turned toward her. And in a low, raspy voice, he spoke his first words. "They followed me back." The nurse froze. "Who followed you?" she asked nervously. Daniel's mouth opened slightly, and he whispered, "The ones who live behind the trees." The truth about the forest. Sheriff Mark decided to investigate deeper into Ravenwood Forest. He gathered a small team and returned to the exact location where Daniel's backpack had been found. After hours of searching, they discovered something chilling: a clearing in the middle of the forest. In the center of the clearing stood dozens of tall wooden poles, and on top of each pole was an animal skull: deer, fox, wolf, but one skull was different. It was human, and carved into the ground beneath it were strange symbols, ancient, unfamiliar, terrifying. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The forest became silent, and then they heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, circling them. The sheriff shouted, "Who's there?" No answer, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Within seconds, panic spread through the team. They ran back to their vehicles and left the forest immediately. None of them spoke about what they felt that day, but every one of them had the same nightmare that night: a tall figure standing behind a tree, watching them. The final night, 1 week later, Daniel was scheduled to be released from the hospital. Doctors believed he was physically stable. Emily prepared their home for his return. But that night, at exactly 3:00 a.m., the hospital's power suddenly went out. Emergency lights flickered on. Security cameras shut down. Nurses reported hearing whispers echoing through the hallways. Then Daniel's room door slowly opened. A cold wind filled the corridor. Staff rushed toward the room. What they saw froze their blood. Daniel was standing near the window, but he was not alone. Behind him stood several tall, shadowy figures. Their bodies were thin and twisted. Their faces were hidden in darkness. And where their eyes should have been, there was nothing, just empty darkness. The temperature dropped instantly. Lights flickered violently. And then everything went black. The morning after, when electricity returned, hospital staff entered Daniel's room. It was empty. The window was open. Cold wind blew through the curtains. Daniel had vanished again, but this time he left something behind. Written on the wall in dark letters were 4 chilling words: "We needed new eyes." Epilogue: Ravenwood Forest was officially closed by authorities. Warning signs were placed around its borders. But locals still report strange sightings. People walking near the forest at night claim to see figures standing silently between the trees, watching, waiting, and sometimes travelers driving along the nearby roads swear they see a man standing at the edge of the forest. A man with no eyes, smiling, as if searching for someone new.